I am very grateful to be here, and
Back up to your mouth, please.
I am very grateful to be here.
Yeah, there you go.
And just a little thing, because I've only got 15 minutes. After my car accident, I came in touch with that chant and listened to it very regularly, and I used to beg my wife to sing it in her own meditations. And that specific chant really helped me on a healing journey and a magical path that brought me here today. And I don't know, all the serendipity in the world and the universe that you would choose that chant to do today is mind-blowing.
It means you belong here.
Yeah. There's a lot of little chants in that book, and that's the one. So I'm going to go through this, and hopefully I don't take too much time, but March 9th, 2011, I was driving home from work, and my car slid sideways, going 90 miles an hour into a light pole with no airbags, and it was a little convertible. And it cracked my pelvis into 10 pieces, it broke my leg, it broke my spleen open, and my lungs collapsed, my kidneys failed, and I had a brain injury, and bone fragments shot through my body, damaging a lot of tissues and things, and so I was in the windshield, and my left eye smashed out the glass, and I was there in the windshield. I was trying to keep my breath going for about as long as I could, because I just was praying that someone would come and find me trapped in the car. And I think about 15 minutes later, someone from the building next door to where I wrecked my car in Hollywood, they called the ambulance. And so a firefighter came up, and I saw him walking along the pavement as I'd been just trying to breathe. And he had the jaws of life in his hand, and I was in such shock I thought it was a chainsaw. And God forbid they cut the Porsche in half and get me out of the car. And so I believed that they intended to cut my body in pieces and just reassemble it in the hospital. So I yelled out, "Oh, thank God you're here, get me out of here, I want to live." And when he fired it up, it sounds like a chainsaw, so I thought, oh my goodness, forget it, just leave me here, I'll figure it out on my own. And I collapsed, and this is where things get pretty unbelievable. I woke up, and I was standing on the pavement next to the car, and I looked down, and I saw my feet, and I had no shoes or socks on. And then I turned around, and there was a firefighter cutting my body out of the car. And then I looked up ahead, and I saw I saw my great-grandfather standing in the street, and my grandfather standing next to him, and this giant doorway of white light. And I looked over here, and there was like this power line going down into the pavement, or into the grass next to the street. And my great-grandfather, he was wearing this vest. It was like I didn't know what it was. It was just like something I'd never seen in pictures of him wearing. And then he was smiling. And my grandfather, his son, was wearing a huge, not huge, but it was a beautiful double-breasted suit with a fabulous fedora, and he had this little mustache that he always kind of had in his 20s. So he was a very young man with a sporty young mustache. And the doorway of light was right next to him, and I walked up. I don't know why I did this, but I walked up to my great-grandfather, and I could feel things on the road under my bare feet. And I just said to him, "Thank you so much for doing everything in your life that allowed me to have a better life. And his son stepped forward and said, do something for yourself that no one else can claim. Don't be like me, because he worked for his dad his entire life. And he didn't get to pursue his own dreams. And it was the son in the company. And then I looked at this doorway of white light, and I leaned in, and there was millions of wings fluttering, and it was so deep, you couldn't see the end of it. It was just this vast expanse of white light with wings fluttering through it. And then it shifted into the shape of a person. So then there was like 3 people standing in front of me, except that was a light being, and it started vacillating from pure white light to pink and orange and yellow, and it was all these very silvery tone colors, but it was just a total light being, and all 3 of them pushed me backwards into my body in the car. And then I reached over and I grabbed that electric power line, and I felt this massive burst of electrical shock going through my body. And then I started experiencing all of these realities, which I called just dreams, but they were so realistic that I couldn't explain what they were. And it felt like I was just living all of these lives at once. And one of them was that my wife and I were like working on a cruise ship somewhere as hip-hop dancers. And we had like bandanas on our elbows and our knees, and then there was these other experiences where all of a sudden, I was in Malibu at a house, and John Lennon was there, and Carole King was there, and James Taylor was there, and all these other musicians were there, and I remember like sitting in the sand, and there was water around me, and it was just this great summer trip to a Malibu house with all these wonderful musicians. I realized later that what was going on is I was actually in a coma, and my wife was sitting next to the bed playing Carole King, James Taylor, and what I learned in that coma was that I could hear everything going on in the room around me. So if you ever have somebody in your life that they're in a hospital situation or something, play music for them, because it is transformative and it's lifting their spirit away. And then I remember getting like a phone call in my dream, and I called my best friend, and I said, I think I'm dying, so I want you to do something for me. He's an attorney. I said, I would like you to make sure that my wife gets everything I have, or everything I'm ever supposed to have. Whatever it is, I don't know, but please take care of her. And I hung up the phone. And there's a couple of other things in here I want to tell you, but you know, time is all different. So I dreamed that I was moving. I was hovering up in the sky, like way up in the clouds, and I got sucked down. Like I literally could feel being sucked down by my feet downward through this tunnel of gel and wires and weird stuff. And then I popped out, and I couldn't breathe. It was like I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. And then I popped out of the south end of this tunnel, and it was all pink clouds around me. And then I was hovering downward through these clouds, and I saw way, way down, and I heard all these voices mumbling and talking, and I saw the little black ants or bugs or something, and they were milling about, and it turned out it was the top of people's heads. And I was hovering over them, and as I was getting closer, there was a table with like a person on the table, and all these people milling about around the table, and I thought, it was like some weird cabal of people that they're about to eat this person. And I made a lot of horror movies, by the way. So, and I thought this is just like another plot in one of my movies. And then as I hovered closer to the table, I went and I was the person on the table, and people were trying to figure out how to keep me there and keep me alive. And so that happened once, and then it happened twice. And the second time it happened, I was really involved in all these people around the table, and they were arguing about me staying there, and then my spirit would get taken away back up into these clouds, and then I would start the journey through this tunnel back down into the clouds over the room. And the last time, so the second time, all my family was weeping around the bed, crying. My wife was there crying around the bed. And then the last time, the third time, everyone was really happy and smiling and just really happy. And someone turned and they said, "You're going to get to stay here. You can stay, you will stay here." And then I heard this voice say, "You promised you'd never leave me. Please don't ever leave me." You promised you'd never leave me. And it was my wife. And I woke up, and I was at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. And she was leaning over me, and she said, "Everything's going to be okay. You're at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. There's been an accident. It's going to be okay. I love you. You need to rest, so just rest." And I did. I laid in that hospital bed for 6 weeks in the ICU. And I stayed in that hospital for 6 months until I was paralyzed. I had that whole thing where it was like a movie, and I looked down at my hand. I told my hand to move, and it wouldn't move. I couldn't move my legs. My whole left side of my body was paralyzed from nerve crush injuries in my sacrum. And slowly, I went through rehab in the hospital over time. It's 6 months, and I was able to move my arm, and I was able to move kind of my left hand a little bit. Still I can't really do it, but I'm trying to move each finger individually on my left hand right now, but you'll see I can't. And my pelvis was broken when I went home from the hospital. I was catheterized for life, and now I'm not, so don't worry about that. It's one of the small blessings. We have photographs of us in the hospital, laying in the bed, smiling together through all of this. Smiling that we were alive and we were together. And it was pretty bleak. And one of the things I remember in the hospital is I remember, because I had a lot of time by myself in that room, and I looked up, and my mom had taken this photograph of me from when I was a child. You remember how when you were a kid, you'd go to school and picture day, you'd get that picture taken of you, and you'd get that big cutout thing where there'd be a lot of small ones on the side, and then 2 medium ones, and then the big one in the middle. So my mom took that middle picture, stuck it on the wall, and there was about 300 or 400 people that went to the hospital trying to see me. And so they took all these cards and they put all these cards on the wall around it. So one day I'm looking at that photograph of myself on the wall, and I realize that picture of that 4-year-old kid, that picture of the 4-year-old kid is who I am, really. So I wanted to tell you guys all this. There's a picture of you somewhere as a kid. When you go home later, please look at that photograph and meditate on that photograph for about 5 minutes or whatever you want. And realize that little, young, innocent person is inside of you, and that is like a beautiful little spirit, and that's who we all are. We're all just little children. So now I'm going to jump forward a couple of years. I got well, we recovered, we did so much therapy. And one of my best things that I did was 2 years later, I was able to walk, and my left heel was sore to the point of years of some kind of bone bruise or something. So I went to this house in Wisconsin that was owned by my great-grandfather. He built it and he retired there. And I'm going through this old musty lake house, a lot of dust and must, and I'm opening up all the windows and the doors. And I flip this one door open, and hanging on the back of it is the vest that he was wearing at the side of the road when I was in the car accident. And I had never seen it before, and I never saw a photograph of him with it, but it was the exact, and it was like a fishing vest. And I realized that he's been kind of following me and around me for a long time. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It was there, and here's some interesting stuff. I went to a woman who reads your, not a tarot card reader, but she kind of tells you things about your life, and oh, this person's with you, or this is with what you're going through, and I'm going to read your future now. And so she said, there's a person behind you, and they're surrounded in black, and this person is really worried about you, but says he loves your wife, and he's very happy that she's with you, and he's very proud of what you're doing. And she's like, is there somebody like that in your life? I said, well, there's a lot of people like that in my life. And I tried not to tell her anything to make sure she wasn't trying to con me or something. So I said, well, my great-grandfather was in the oil business. And she said, yeah. She said, he says he's riding the rails. He rides the rails. Well, years later, I also found out that he owned 900 tanker cars. And I think that was a connection. But I let that go. It was really about that vest for me. And it was really about the fact that I saw him on the side of the road, and it just, seeing the wings in that doorway of white light, and feeling totally protected and cared for in that situation when I'm paralyzed in a hospital, and I'm in a coma. I'm hearing the music. I wanted you guys to hear this. I wish Daryl was here today, because music really is what drives our spirits. You know it when we're in here listening to music. You guys have the best music book that I've ever seen, by the way. But you know it, you listen to music, you don't think, you don't worry, you don't think about your problems, you don't think of anything, you are in spirit in the moment, and you're in the now. Which that has become a real big thing for us. We took the clock off the wall in the kitchen, and we replaced it with this one clock that just, in the middle of it, it says now. And there's a little thing on the bottom of it that has Buddha on the bottom of it, just going back and forth, just ticking. And that's really the biggest thing that we've come to appreciate, is just being in the now and being in the present, and not worrying about anything, and not worrying about anything that's yet to happen. And what an incredible thing it is to just be here with you today, because it's really, really just such a great, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah.
Before I lead you in the meditation, I'm a little shorter than him. I just want to let you all know that just on he had his reality, right, of what was going on at that time. But in the pure medical reality of it, he died 3 times. They cut him out of the car, and the minute they got him to the hospital, he coded for 3 minutes. So, and they did the paddles on him to bring him back, and it took them 3 minutes to get him back, and they didn't know if there'd be brain damage or what was going on, because I think it's a 5-minute limit that your brain can be without oxygen. But when he always told the story, when I heard it the first time and he said he touched the wire, I thought, oh my God, because at that time in the hospital, that's what was happening. And then he died again on the table that night when they were operating on him, because when they removed his spleen, he bled out and he needed numerous transfusions. And then there was a time about 2 or 3 weeks later when his mother and I were in the hospital room together with him, and he coded. And they had to come in, and you hear that horrible sound over the speaker in the hospital, code blue, code blue. It was in his room. So I just thought it would be of interest to know that that's what was happening medically, and then there was this whole other thing happening spiritually at the same time. Is quite incredible.
May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surrounds you, and the pure light within you guide your way home. May the long time sun shine up